What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today will be a spotlight showcase of Skeledirge. Now, some of you are probably already thinking, Clover, why the heck are we talking about Skeledirge in Regulation G, a restricted legendary format of all formats? How is this thing even relevant? So it actually has a niche right now in the meta, and people have used it, and there have been some tournament results already. And it's getting a little bit more consideration, which is why we're spotlighting it in today's video. So, Skeledirge, you might ask, like, again, why, how, and why? So, it's a fire ghost type, okay, with unaware, which is a really, really good combination if you consider what's running around in the meta. And because it's a fire ghost Pokemon, it's actually falling in the same category of Chandelure and Ceruledge, right? And both of these have already, the same niche that Skeledirge is going to provide. They're a fire ghost type, which means a couple things. First of all, if you consider one of the most used restricted legendaries right now, with Zamazenta taking the meta by storm, Zamazenta can't really hit these guys, okay? You can't use a fighting move on a ghost type, and the fire move is either resisted or you just can't hit it at all because of flash fire. So that's great immunity to one of the best restricteds that's running around right now. And then at the same time, don't forget about Koraidon. Koraidon is also running around as well. And again, the fighting move is not very good against ghost types. And then, Koraidon also runs fire moves, right? Flare Blitz or Flame Charge. And again, these are Pokemon that can literally sit in front of these guys and say, ha 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 ha, you can't hit me, right? So that's a great niche for a Pokemon to have, against two of the top 8 restricteds in the format. So we've seen Ceruledge used a little bit on some of those Terapagos teams, because Terapagos is a restricted that kind of struggles against both of these, right? It's the main boon against it, right? So then you just use your ghost type, and now all of a sudden these guys, they can't really do anything. So that's like almost your check to some of these options, which is really, really nice. And then, Jamie Boyd used Chandelure, not too bad, but, Aurelian's the one that really, really highlighted Ceruledge when he got like that really high placement in Stockholm. So shout out to Aurelian for really coming up with that idea. But again, Skeledirge, if you just consider some of its moves, so Torch Song is something that, is a very, very common set either way, no matter how you want to build it. In previous formats in Regulation A or Regulation C, right? It's just ramping up damage over time, right? And then you look at its stats, it's actually quite bulky, like 104 HP, 100 defense. Okay, 75 SpDef isn't all that great, but it's not paper. It's still workable. You can invest a lot of EVs into your special defense to make it super bulky. And then you add Will-O-Wisp, right? So this is something that Incineroar usually does, as your fire type on his team, right? Will-O-Wisp can just burn a lot of the physical attackers. Okay, then you get your Shadow Ball, which is great into the other ghost types. Imagine the Calyrex Shadow Rider, or even like the Calyrex Ice Rider. You can also consider that. And then you have healing over time. You can do Slack Off, right? So you can heal 50% just instantly, or you can just simply put Protect. Safety Goggles also lets you get around the Amoongus shenanigans. And then this is it, right? And then you go Terra Water for a little bit of a defensive Terra purpose. And you have your Skeledirge. Okay, now in terms of like an EV set, you can just do something like this, where you can just go modest up to the first EV bump here, right? Where is it? Right there, yeah, 76. So again, if you're trying to build, competitive teams, right, and you're trying to invest EV spreads, and you're not sure how, make sure you understand what are EV bumps, because they're the foundation of creating spreads, right? Besides, knowing your speed tiers and your damage calcs, if you don't know any of them, right, you always want to start off with your EV bumps. So if you don't know what are EV bumps, comment in the video below asking what are EV bumps, and I will explain it to you with a reply. Okay, then let's go to 208 HP, just to get that optimal grassy terrain recovery if you have a Rillaboom on your team. And then after that, you just need 1 point in your defense, right? You don't need that much. You're already like relatively bulky enough. And then speed, same thing. You're not really gonna be super fast and trying to outspeed everything. The main thing is you outspeed Incineroar, which is great because Incin is like base 60, you're base 66. And most of these Incineroars, they don't really invest that much into their speed. So if you just want to invest a couple points here, that's already like good enough. And then from there, you can just dump the rest into SpDef like this, right? So it's a relatively bulky Pokemon that's just meant to, click the occasional Will-O-Wisp and Torch Song, stop ramping up damage. Now, again, they can't really ignore you, right? Because if you even get like 1 or 2 Torch Songs off, then you can just become a pretty good sweeper for the niche that you wanted to fulfill. Now, that being said, you're not going to bring it to every single game. Of course not, right? It's only meant for specific restricted legendary matchups. So, just keep that in mind. But what I do want to show you moving forward before we build this team is to show some other teams that have used Skeledirge in some tournament play. So this way you get a sense of how it was used and why. All right, let's head into the LabMouse website here and let's take a look at some teams that have had success with Skeledirge. Now, some of this is dating back to, middle of April where you still had the Orlando regionals going on. But we're just going to ignore those because, we're in Regulation G. So let's look over here with Grayson Garin with 6-3 results from Indianapolis. So that's a good score. It's with Calyrex Ice Rider along with Tornadus stuff. And then you have a Tinglu, Blood Moon Ursaluna, and Rillaboom. This team is something else, right? But we do have a Skeledirge here. I'm not so sure about this one, but, Grayson highlighted it to fruition over here. So shout outs to Grayson. But I'm not so sure if I would have built a team like this. But obviously he made it work. There's Tailwind Trick Room stuff going on here. And then the Skeledirge with Sunny Day can actually do a lot. So that's one idea. I don't know if I recommend that. But hey, it did get a result. But this one, this one's a little bit more idealistic here with the Terapagos here. So this is actually the way I would build it, where not necessarily the 6, but at least with Terapagos as my restricted, right? So that's going to give you that matchup into the Koraidon Zamazenta stuff. Then you have screens over here. So screens Terapagos is also a consideration, at least back then from Indianapolis. Then you have the Rillaboom stuff with Milotic. So you still have this Fire, Water, Grass core going along here. And then the Urshifu gives you that Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup. So, this also makes sense. This has Hex, for a little bit more damage after Will-O-Wisp. So that's also pretty interesting. But yeah, that's the way I would do it. I would definitely pair it with Terapagos here. Then over here, this one was paired with a Zamazenta in itself, right? Along with Galarian Moltres and still Tinglu over here. So this is actually, somewhat similar to Grace's team, right? You had a Rillaboom, you had the Tinglu, then you had the Calyrex, right? But then over here, you have Zamazenta in itself, still giving this Fire, Water, Grass core with Ursh, Rillaboom, and Skeledirge. Again, pretty good. 5-3 result, not bad at all. I do like Moltres in this format, by the way, especially with Zamazenta. I think this is a great idea, into the Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup, along with Tinglu, right? Of course, this is also reminiscent of the Kiano team, right? A little bit with this trio, along with Michael Zhang stuff, but that's also a way to do it. This one over here, a little bit more recent. This one is with Kyurem White. Yeah, definitely Kyurem White does not want to deal with Zamazenta and also Koraidon to an extent, right? But you do have the ice advantage, right? You do have weather control here. This is also a pretty cool way to use Skeledirge here. But again, nice little Fire, Water, Grass core with Rillaboom, Skeledirge, and Urshifu over here. I do like this a lot. And then, of course, you have the screens idea with the Alolan Ninetales. But again, very matchup specific. I can't see Skeledirge coming to every game, but mainly specifically those Zamazenta Koraidon games, right? And then after that, it just hasn't really been used all that much, but it does have a niche if people are willing to explore it. But all things considered, I do like Terapagos, in terms of the pairing with it. I think it just makes a lot of sense, given the fact that Koraidon and Zamazenta are the biggest boon to it. All right, so let's go back into the Showdown Team Builder. Let's go ahead and build this very basic Terapagos Skeledirge team, and then let's test it out for a couple games. Okay, so now in terms of like adding the pieces to the team, I think Tornadus just makes a lot of sense as well, just to give Terapagos a little bit more speed than what it needs, right? So I'll definitely play the choice spec set with Terapagos. So I think, just Terra Starstorm, Dark Pulse, Earth Power, and then of course Sleep Talk, for this Amoongus shenanigans is going to be pretty good here. I like this a lot. And then for like Tornadus, you're going to get Tailwind stuff. So that's pretty good. And then after that, then you can start adding, pieces like Urshifu, Rapid Strike here. Torn Ursh is always going to be really good, especially if you decide to put Rain Dance on this Tornadus. Then after that, let's get a Grass type going. We don't have to necessarily put Rillaboom. We can definitely use Amoongus here. Rillaboom can work, of course, but I do like Amoongus into those Trick Room games. Then after that, I think I like Raging Bolt as well. Just to, again, give you that bulky Assault Vest user with Snarl support, electroweb support. Okay, then you get like the priority stuff with Thunderclap, and then one big nuke with Draco Meteor. So this is like a very basic, you know, Terapagos team, right? You know, you can see some of these pieces like that have been used before, and then after this, then you have a Skeledirge. Something like Chiyu can be used here, of course, right? Just to give Terapagos a little bit more damage, right? But Chiyu doesn't match up necessarily that well into those other options, right? Especially if you can just outspeed the Chiyu, which is something that Zamazenta and Koraidon are able to do, right? Now, Skeledirge can't do that, but again, Skeledirge can kind of just sit in front of those guys and say, haha, right? As we said. But from here, what I want to do, let's just go Covert Cloak over here. And then you can just do some stuff like Bleak Wind Storm, of course, Tailwind. Then you have a Taunt user. And then you can simply put Protect here, or you can even just put Rain Dance, right? So, you know, all things considered, that's also the way to go, right? But I for the purposes of the video, I just went Protect when I was testing it. I like Terra Steel here. And then for the Skeledirge, we already did it. Terapagos, we did. Urshifu, so I like the Choice Scarf variant, of course, to be able to outspeed the Shadow Rider. You know, but just going with the Adamant build, right? Surging Strikes, Close Combat. Now, dig this. I did like Ice Spinner here, just to be able to remove terrain, especially from Miraidon. I think that's also important, and I do like U-Turn over here, right? And Terra Grass is also pretty nice. You know, resists the electric weaknesses as well as the grass weakness as well, and helps you get around Amoongus too. Then over here, I like Rocky Helmet, and I do like Terra Water here. You can also go Terra Dark, you know, for taunt purposes, but Rage Powder, Spore, Pollen Puff, and then Protect, very standard set. Raging Bolt here, we already did right? A Terra Electric, which is pretty solid. So, how do we want to round out these EV spreads? So, I'm going to go Calm on this Tornadus, believe it or not. I'm going to go Calm here. You know, just get a little bit more special defense boost, but still have enough physical bulk where I can take the 236 Adamant Surging Strikes from the Urshifu, right? So, I always want to live that. So this way I can tell the tale the next turn, right? So that's my physical bulk, you know, damage calc. Then I'll just go to the first bump here, right? Which is 76 investment. See how the stack goes up by 2 points instead of 1? There's your first bump there. And then after that, just a little bit of speed. 135 is all you really need in terms of speed, right? Because if you consider the, what's that called? The electroweb consideration, okay? You know, that'll help you outspeed a lot of different threats along with your Tailwind. So I think 135 is really all you need. And sometimes you can be slower, right? And bulkier and still thrive with Tornadus. We've done this before, right? But anyway, Terapagos, you can just go Timid 252, right? Just simply do that speed investment, and you know, you're a choice specs variant, so that's all you really need. Okay, then the Urshifu, like we said, enough speed to outspeed the Shadow Rider. Then you can go to the third benchmark here, which is 198, I believe. Yep, so that's already there. Then you have 176. This is good for Rillaboom Grassy Terrain Recovery. Then you just add a little bit more into defense and round it out with 1 point in Spit Up, right? Then the Amoongus. So the Relax set is what I've been enjoying, right? Some of you know this from my team building video, but this investment with 236, along with 236 investment here, this is enough to survive the Calyrex Ice Rider Glacial Lance, as well as the Chien-Pao Ice Attack. And then from here, you just dump the leftovers into Spit Up like this. Bulky Mushroom, that's all you really needed to do. Raging Bolt, Modest over here. So just about 112, right? That's all you need. This is going to let you outspeed the Shadow Rider under Tailwind, so this way you can Snarl it. And then after that, you can go to 124 special attack for the Photosynthesis benefit, 1 point in the special defense to get a nice even number for the Assault Vest optimization, and then 224 investments, right, into your HP for, again, that magical Rillaboom Grassy Terrain Recovery that you might run into from your opponent, and then just dump the rest into the defense like this. And it's relatively bulky enough. So again, you can kind of see it, like these are just like very general EV spreads, just, you know, getting some benchmarks going, just so that you can hop onto the ladder real quick and start testing things with Skeledirge over here. All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple test games. All right, so I want to showcase this game that we had against this Koraidon player, right? So he's got, like, you know, the Tailwind stuff with Tornadus. He's got Rillaboom and Incin, right? His first fire grass type. His, you know, his fake out boy is probably Nasty Plat Goldango over here. And then, of course, the Walking Wake, which does relatively well in the sun, right? So this is something where Skeledirge can really thrive, because you got a fire type attack for 3 of these options, right? For Rillaboom, Goldango, and even the Koraidon. Again, like I said, you just sit in front of it And then from there, the instant is something you do have to concern yourself a little bit, but you know, you have 5 other members to really deal with Incineroar, so you're kind of okay there. So how do we want to do this? So he goes into Incin and he goes into the Koraidon immediately, right? So that's fine. We're gonna go Tornadus and we're gonna go Terapagos. I kind of want to bait him into attacking the Terapagos here. So what we're gonna do simply is just switch it out and go into the Skeledirge immediately, right? So this way we can kind of bait him and start putting on pressure next turn with Tailwind. So there's the Flame Charge. Of course we resist it, right? He gets a speed boost, but that's not going to matter. So he parting shots the Terapagos slot. Now the Skeledirge gets weak, but that's okay, right? We're not really meant to do damage immediately with Skeledirge. All I really need is to burn this Koraidon, right? And he goes for Flame Charge into Tornadus. Again, we survive, we're bulky, and there is the Will-O-Wisp. So instant value from Skeledirge already, right? Your restricted is burned, okay? So we're going to go into Raging Bolt here. I don't want to take another fighting move. I want to preserve the Tornadus later. Right? He's got his Tailwind going now. Okay, so look how much damage he's doing with Flavorless. Again, he's weakened now. Torch Song, that's good damage into Tornadus. I'm back to neutral. Okay, which is good news for me. Right? He's going to switch right into Incineroar, right? He doesn't want to lose the Tornadus the next turn. That's fine though, right? So Collision Course, again, that's now a neutral move. But again, we're just maintaining control here. Okay, the burn Koraidon is just not doing much, and now we're gonna start ramping up damage a little bit with Skeledirge because now we're +1, right? So he goes Collision Course again. We live, of course. Again, the knockoff is, you know, not great, but you know, safety goggles didn't really matter. So we take out the Incin with Draco Meteor. We're -2 now, but look, now this Torchong is really doing some damage into the Koraidon here, right? And I am a little bit weak, but he can't really kill me. Now the Walking Wake can. All right, so I'm just going to get a little bit of chip into the Walking Wake, right? Even if I lose Skeledirge now, it's okay. Skeledirge has done his job already, right? So he Hydro Steams, he knocks it out. By the way, Raging Bolt living is huge. So we have good EV investments there. But now we can go into Tornadus here, right? And now I can go for Tailwind. I can set up. I can still go for a little bit of chip damage. That was probably a mistake, honestly. I probably should have just did a little bit more into Walking Wake here. But this is okay. I lose the Tornadus, but I already got my Tailwind off. And now I get the free switch into the Terapagos, and now Terapagos can kind of just finish the game off for me, right? We can go Terra Stellar, right? I can click everything I want, a little bit more chip damage into Walking Wake, right? Collision Course again, not too brilliant, but again, this is still fine. Like Terra Starstorm, and there it is. We just wipe it off, so that's really good. And now he's just down to his Tornadus. He can't really do anything anymore, right? You know, Terapagos just kind of just cleans the game here, right? But this game was won by Skeledirge by burning the Koraidon, stalling it. And, you know, Koraidon was doing really... I'm sorry. Skeledirge was going in. It was actually dealing some solid damage with Torch Song in the sun. So, again, you saw the instant value for it already. Okay, Shadow Rider Games is a pretty good game for Terapagos because, again, you can kind of sit in front of it and force it to click a Psychic move as opposed to Astral Barrage. So you have the advantage there. But this is a game where you're not really necessarily going to bring Skeledirge. So you're going to leave this thing on the bench, right? And like I said, you're not going to bring it to every game. It's only going to be matchup specific, but the other 5 members you can kind of deal with. So this is a HO team, right? He's got the Indeedee, he's got the Alecki, okay? So I'm not so sure about Regieleki and regulationG, but again, this is also a pretty good game for like Tornadus, where it can really help you with the speed control here, along with like Raging Bolt stuff, right? So that's how I'm going to play this. So I'm going to go Tornadus, Terapagos immediately, right? And even if he goes into the Ursh, that's still okay. So it's Whimsicott, Blood Moon, Ursaluna. So this might be like max speed Ursaluna, but that's okay, right? So I want to taunt the Whimsicott just to test out, you know, what it could do. He goes for Tailwind anyway, that's fine. So we're going to taunt this thing, and he's going to go for the Hyper Voice here for, you know, big damage into both of my Mons, right? But that's okay, because Terra Starstorm does even more damage, right? Choice Specs, right? So you can only do Vacuum Wave, right? Because I'm just going to go Tailwind, and now I'm just going to remove these options here, right? The Whimsicott did not go for the Terapagos. He went for the Tornadus, right? So now you can easily bring in the Calyrex here and the Urshifu Rapid Strike. So, you know, for me, his play is easy. Just click Aqua Jet and the Psychic move, right? Because look, we live the Expanding Force, but I know I outspeed the Ursh because he's at 149. I'm at 150, so I outspeed him anyway. He had no Choice Scarf. He was actually the Mystic Water variant, but now he just kind of loses. So I feel like not having or not doing Aqua Jet there with Expanding Force was kind of a throw, but, you know, in the end, we still had some other options to really deal with the Calyrex, namely the Raging Bolt. Alright, so finally we have a Zamazenta team here. So, you know, what was interesting about this one is, yes, there's a Zamazenta, so Skeledirge is definitely going to come here, but you just have to be careful with the Urshifu Rapid Strike and also the Pelipper stuff, right? Because those things are going to do well into the Skeledirge, so you just have to position properly. Something like Raging Bolt can look good here in a way just because there is 2 water types there. You know, but there is the threat of Chien-Pao a little bit, right? And, you know, Amoongus can be a little bit annoying, so, you know, it's decent. It's not terrible. But our own Urshifu looks pretty okay. Same thing with our Tornadus. I feel like the fact that we have Tailwind is going to help us out here. And his Pelipper does not have Tailwind. Okay, and the other interesting thing is, you know, from the open team sheet at the time, I knew that it was a Sash Pelipper, but no Sash on the Chien-Pao. It was just clear Amulet. So I can use that somewhat, you know, to my advantage for, you know, in terms of information, right? So as we play this match, you know, again, just look at how we position the board a little bit, right? Because that's going to matter in how you play these games. You know, just because you have a positive matchup doesn't mean you win, right? It's all about positioning, right? That's what gives you that positive matchup, the position stuff, right? So I'm going to go Tornadus Ursh for just a little bit of speed control early on because I know he doesn't have it. He goes Amoongus and his own Urshifu, right? So he can redirect all these attacks, but I have Ice Spinner. That's a big difference maker here, right? Because I can do big damage into the Amoongus like this. And he goes Surging Strikes here, which is okay in a way. But now we just go for the Bleak Wind immediately, and thankfully we hit, and the Amoongus is gone. So that helps us a lot, and the fact that we get a speed drop on the Ursh is huge. So now here comes Zam here, but that's still okay, right? Because, okay, so he goes into Pelipper there. That's fine. I'm stuck into Ice Spinner, and he knows that, right? So this is why he goes for the Iron Defense, because he knows that, you know, it's just not going to do that much damage. And the Pelipper here can obviously go for the Wire Guard, but that's okay. I pinned that slot anyway, right? Because I still have all this chip damage into the Pelipper, okay? And the Zamazenta does remove my Tornadus, but that's okay. I still have workable turns with Tailwind, and again, if I can get this one-on-one with Skeledirge and Zamazenta in the endgame, then it's going to be really good. But he goes for Grass Zam. He protects the Pelipper, which is fine. I mean, you just died to Ursh anyway, but he's in a bad matchup here, right? Because now the Torch Song is going to start really doing more damage into this Rain. He does remove my Urshifu, okay? And now I have 1 turn of Tailwind, so I go into Terapagos here to try and make use of it, which is fine, but you know, the fact that I have the speed advantage is used. I really felt like he should have just protected Zamazenta here, but he decided to be a little bit more aggressive. I removed the weather, by the way, so that's what lets my Skeledirge live a little bit, right? So Terra Starstorm just removes, and this Torch Song just cleans up the Zamazenta there, right? So really, I guess the Skeledirge didn't, like, you know, force this endgame a little bit, but, you know, we just had Tailwind. That's really what helps you against some of these non-Tailwind Zamazenta teams, the fact that you have Tornadus, and then you can always bring in the Skeledirge in the endgame versus the Zamazenta. So really the focus is just kill everything not named Zamazenta, and then get this endgame with Skeledirge versus Zam, and you'll always win that, right? But in this case, wasn't necessarily needed. The Zamazenta did do work, but the fact that we had Tailwind allowed us to beat all his other options, and Ice Spinner Urshifu was huge here. Alright, this is a pretty typical Clefairy, Calyrex, Shadow Rider stuff. So we're not going to bring Skeledirge here, but we are going to bring Raging Bolt with the Snarl stuff. And then our own Terapagos is not bad into the Calyrex as well, right? We're forcing it to click a move that's not named Astral Barrage. I feel like he does have to bring the Urshifu. So, you know, we'll consider that. I don't think he needs to bring Tornadus. He could if he wants to, but it's not necessary. But for us, we're going to just bring this Raging Bolt immediately along with our Ursh, just in case if he does lead the Calyrex, right? But he goes for Insane Tornadus. A little bit of a strange lead here. He fakes out the Ursh, but that's okay, right? He goes for Tailwind. He was already faster, you know, with Calyrex in the back, but I guess he does want the speed advantage in a way, right? We go for the E-Waves, a little bit of chip. We Thunderclap the Torn. He didn't even switch it, but that's fine. So here we go. Surging Strikes into the Incin. He gets his berry, but that's not going to be enough to survive Urshifu, right? So already 2 Mons gone straight from the get-go. And now he just has the Calyrex, and it's just Clefairy. So this is easy Snarl stuff, right? And he can't really beat this pressure. So I'm just going to go into Terapagos, you know, into the Ash Barrage in case he goes for it. But it's just follow me, nasty plot, right? Which is, I guess, understandable, right? But now I just Snarl you, and you could die in 2 more turns, right? And you're only +1 instead of +2, which +1 is still pretty strong, by the way. But anyway, Terapagos does go for the Terra here, and he actually just goes for like a double protect, which I don't understand, right? You know, because you have the speed advantage. This is what's gonna let you win the game anyway, but not that you needed it because we were faster. But the fact that, you know, I guess you can't really beat this Terapagos, I guess, you know, maybe you could click the Psychic move and then Helping Hand could just maybe one-shot it, but you know, he felt like it wasn't good enough. But Snarl was also pressuring the Calyrex there, so in a way, I'm not so sure if he had anything going for him in this game. Anyway, that's it. So go ahead and give this one a try. Again, Skeledirge is very matchup specific, but you could see that it can do well into some of the more popular restricteds like Zamazenta and a Koraidon kind of team. And those are the main matches where you really want to bring it, right? And sometimes you can bring it into the Terapagos mirror, right? A little bit, but it's still not super great. I would just leave it for those two. Everything else, like the other 5, you can bring to, you know, your other games, right? But again, Skeledirge does have that niche, so, you know, consider it. Think about it. Let me know what you've done with it, if you've tested it out already, or if you just think Ceruledge is just better. Okay. But anyway, if you're still interested in team building for regulationG, and if you need some help putting a squad together for a tournament, or if you need something for basic online ranked ladder play, make sure you sign up for coaching on the channel for the tier 3 sub. If you look in the video description below, or if you look in the pinned comment section, there is the link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. And then from there, we can coordinate a one-on-one Discord call and get you the team that you need for whatever purpose you need it for. All right, so that's gonna do it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.